I'm here with Reverend Martin Copenhaver, President of the Andover Newton Theological School. Thank you, Martin, for joining us today.
Well, it's great to be with you, Brian. Thank you.
As you know, Frederick Buechner will soon be turning 90 years old. Is there anything you would like to wish him for this great milestone?
Well, first of all, it is a great milestone, really wonderful, 90 years old. I think what I would wish for him is a sense of how much he's beloved, because he certainly is far and wide. Not just that his writing or him as a person of letters, but him as a person, that he is much beloved.
Next, can you tell me how you first learned about Mr. Buechner's work?
Yeah, that's a wonderful story in my own life. I was a first-year student at Yale Divinity School. It was 1977, and in February there's what they call a reading week, where they don't have regular classes, but they also at that time have lecturers come in during that week of classes suspended. So I took that opportunity to go to Pennsylvania, where I asked my future wife to marry me during that week, and she said yes. She is still my wife these many years later, but I came back to Yale Divinity School and learned about the Beecher Lecture. The Beecher Lectures are the preeminent preaching lectureship in the country, and this fabulous lecturer, someone I had not heard of before then, named Frederick Buechner. And so I quickly scrambled to get a tape of the lectures, and then they were eventually published as Telling the Truth, one of his wonderful books. So I think I made the right choice by going to Pennsylvania, but I was grateful that I could do some catch-up by hearing the lectures and then reading the book.
That's a great story. What most attracts you to Mr. Buechner's writing?
Oh, there's so much that attracts me about his writing. I think what I would highlight is the combination of his being very fresh in his writing. I mean, even those things that he wrote some time ago now still feel very fresh, and also at the same time timeless. I think that his writings will be read generations from now, which is certainly not true of many people's writings, even some good writing in this time. So I would say that combination. I mean, an example of the freshness, the kind of freshness of perspective, memorable lines like doubt is the ants in the pants of faith, that's what keeps faith alive and moving, or you can no more forgive yourself than you can sit in your own lap, or the way he described the preacher dealing out index cards on the pulpit, his notes as a riverboat gambler will deal cards on the gambling table. Anyway, just those images are and phrases are indelible because they have a certain freshness, I think, in part, but also I think are timeless. I would say that early in my life he may have influenced me too much, in that I think I in some way tried, in vain of course, to imitate his writing and preaching style. I think that for most preachers they borrow other people's voices before they find their own, and actually borrowing voices is helpful in the process of finding one's own, and that was probably the case for me. But I think what I would say is just the honor and respect of the task of preaching. If he, by his excellence and creativity and obvious care in his preparation of sermons, that it elevates one's own expectations for one's own preaching. I think the image that comes to me is if you watch someone like Larry Bird play basketball, if you aspire to be a basketball player, just even seeing it done so well will keep you out later at the hoop, shooting more baskets to aspire to be the best you can, even if you can't achieve being Larry Bird yourself. One of the early books of sermons, a collection of sermons, is The Magnificent Defeat, which I just loved and have read many times. And of his memoirs, Sacred Journey is just a modern classic of a spiritual autobiography. I know that's one of a series, but that volume in particular means a great deal to me. And then, of course, Godric, which, as a novel, I just adored. It was like nothing else I'd ever read. The rhythm and kind of earthiness of the language that is used. It's like a long prose poem, and the characters so vivid. I just love all those books.
Has Mr. Buechner inspired any of the things that you've written?
Oh, certainly. I think what his inspiration for me in my own writing is that I've tried to interpret the Christian faith in a way that is true to its full dimension and yet also accessible for people. That is not compromising in the way that the Christian faith is relayed, and yet making sure or trying to do my best to make sure that that it's accessible.
More broadly speaking, what influence would you say Mr. Buechner has had on Christianity and the world at large?
Well, I think he's gained a hearing for Christianity in an era that is always tempted to put it aside. He does that both by the seriousness with which he engages the tradition and the ways in which he relays it in such delightful ways. St. Augustine said that all good preaching does three things. It educates and persuades and delights. Now, I think Fred's preaching and his writing does all three of those things: educates, persuades, and delights. But it's the last of those that I think is particularly characteristic of his writing. You can't read it without taking delight in the language and savoring it in a way that is really quite a gift.
So I realize this next question is difficult, but if you were to sum up Fred in a few words, what would you say?
It is difficult to summarize Fred's work and influence, but I would say that he is an elegant interpreter of the Christian faith in a skeptical age, the elegant interpreter par excellence.